Hi guys, so I'm having an issue with my air conditioning system, and what's happening is the compressor comes on, so I can hear the compressor on, and the fan is not turning. So the very first thing you need to do is check the capacitor. Many times the capacitor goes bad, and the capacitor is usually located on one of the sides. So in my case, if you see something like that, so all these corners are round, but this one is kind of like cut off a square. That's where the access panel is, and once you remove the panel, you'll see a small capacitor, and most likely the capacitor for the fan goes bad. They range from anywhere from 5 microfarad to 7.5 microfarad, what I've seen. You might have a little bit different one, but those are like the most commonly used capacitors. Now in my case, I've already changed the capacitor. I tested it, it was bad, I changed it, but the fan is still not working. So most likely the fan has gone bad and it took out the capacitor at some point, so that could be the reason. So today we're going to be removing this grill and kind of going into looking into the fan motor, testing that to make sure the fan is actually bad, and then if it is bad, then we're going to go ahead and replace it. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open the access panel and look at the capacitor, remove the capacitor and the wiring for the fan, so I can get access to the fan and remove it completely. Now before that, guys, make sure the power is off to this unit. It's fed from like a 220 volt AC, so you want to definitely make sure that the power is completely dead before you touch anything. If you have touched it, you want to make sure the capacitors are shorted because it can hold the charge. So if you have turned it on, I would say leave it alone for at least 15-20 minutes for it to discharge, or you can just touch the two top part of the capacitor to discharge them. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and start disassembling. To remove the fan, you have to remove all these screws, and this fan kind of lifts up. But before you do that, you want to make sure you disconnect these wires from the main unit. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so what I did was I removed the screws and lifted the fan, flipped it over, and over here you're going to see the instruction or the sticker with the information of what type of motor this is. So you want to make sure you order the same style motor. If your motor is bad, in my case it's not jammed, but it is definitely bad. Here is the capacitor. Here you can see the small capacitor. This is the actual fan capacitor, and you want to make sure you replace it with the similar type, because you don't want to be using a wrong size capacitor. There's also another big capacitor, which is the harm capacitor, which basically runs your compressor. So to remove this, I'm going to go ahead and undo this bolt and get this out, so we can install the new motor. There are these 3 wires that needs to be disconnected, so we can go ahead and install the new fan. So let me get my new motor, which I've already ordered based on the specs on this old one, and we're going to install the new one. Okay, so this is the new motor that I got, and I tried to match the spec. So this one comes with the 4 wires. So in my old one, as you can see over here, it shows 3 wires that are going inside: the yellow one, the black, and the brown. So the very first thing you want to do is you want to test it to make sure this motor is definitely bad. And since the black and white is the one that's feeding the motor, that's the actual coil where the 110 or 220 volt goes, you can see mine is at 2.6 mega ohms. So that tells me this is no good. So here's my new motor, and as you can see, I have 26.8 ohms, and I'm connected to the white and the black wire. So this tells me the correct reading, and that tells me this motor is good. There's a butterfly, beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and take this inside and install the new motor and the fan blade on this. To remove the fan blade, just remove this. If you have some WD-40 or something, spray it on here so it's easier for you to remove it from here, and then we can mount this on the new one and mount the actual motor to the casing. So something I do want to mention, one of the issues I was having was removing the fan blade from this motor. So I apologize I wasn't able to record it, but I'm going to just briefly do it since there are a lot of videos on there. What I did was I hammered it, you know, I soaked it with the WD-40 and everything, nothing was working. So what I did was, so this silver thing where you see is where my shaft was for the fan blade actually, you know, and it was kind of stuck right there. I kept hammering from here and it was deforming over here, so I kind of figured, like, you know, even if I get the blade out, it's gonna get stuck right here. So what I ended up doing was cutting it right from here. So you need some kind of like, you know, cutting machine or something to cut this off. So I took this piece off, and then my blade shaft was kind of like leveled at the surface. And what I ended up doing was I start hitting onto that, you know, and pushed it down. So kind of I pushed the blade all the way down, and most likely this piece right here is not like, you know, corroded with rust or anything. So I pushed it all the way back, and then I shaved this area with the machine that I had, and I just kind of shaved it all around, you know, just made it clean and kind of cut it a little bit more. And then I flipped the motor, and then I started hitting the blade back. So now when it came on this side, it was very little, and it just popped right back off. So this is how I did that. So let's go back and do the installation of the new motor. Okay, so I have the new motor mounted, and just make sure you give it a nice torque, and you're gonna make sure you leave the same length as you did on the previous one, as you had in the previous one, and just make sure you rotate the blade to make sure that it's not touching either the motor or your casing. So in my cases, I have enough clearance, you know, and once that is, make sure you tied this up pretty good. This is supposed to be in this area, so mine is all ready to go, and I'm gonna go ahead and install this. Okay guys, so now I'm wiring my new fan, and as I said, I have 4 wires. The brown and brown white goes to capacitor. These are the 2 that is supposed to supply power to the motor. So this is a 220. Let me show you in fact the configuration of this motor. So as you can see, it's a 208 230 you know, 1-phase motor. So you just need one wire, the black one. The white one you can just leave it taped off, and we're just gonna use a 208 leg and the 2 for a capacitor. So as you can see, I still pulled up all the way back there, but I'm just gonna use the 1 leg, and that's how the previous one was as well. So we're just gonna match it and do the installation. Okay, so the new fan is installed, and make sure you ground the wire from the motor. Make sure you tie wrap. This is the rotation wires. Make sure you tie wrap these wires, because if you don't, it may come in contact with the blade and cause damage. Over here, as you can see, I leave the white wire, I taped it up pretty good and just left it there. The black one goes on top of the contactor, and the 2 brown ones came to this, and this is also connected to the contactor. So, and this is a 5 microfarad because that's what the motor calls for. And I think I'm ready to wrap it up and fire this baby up. Okay, so I turned the breaker on, and I'm going to fire this up and see. So, cool. And it came on.